is Elizabeth, and this is Nicholas, and he is my second son, and I gave birth to him through VBAC, which I had to fight really hard to do. With my first, I had reached 9 centimeters in a hospital, and had really fought along the way through that birthing process till the point where I just couldn't anymore. And my doctor had wanted me to have a C-section, and I ended up having a C-section, and it was very difficult. The recovery was difficult. I had been told, I had been told by so many people just to go with the flow, and I just sort of knew not to do that because I really had not wanted to have a C-section. And so that was sort of a shadow over my second pregnancy. I became pregnant and just sort of went into it asking my first doctor. Her first thing she said was like, "Oh, you had a C-section. You want to go for another one?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." So it was just a sort of a process of finding people that believed in VBAC, and luckily I had some very honest people along the way. That I was told that the hospital I was at was not VBAC friendly, and so luckily I had been coming to yoga here at Bread and Yoga and doing prenatal, which was amazing for me. I had done a lot of prenatal yoga at my first pregnancy, but it wasn't, it was very sort of gentle and relaxing, whereas the class here I found like I was really strong and practicing for birth during the class, which I found really amazing. And having had the experience of having had contractions, being like, oh yeah, you got to make it through these. So I felt really good and really strong in my pregnancy. And then with the help of Marcella, I switched hospitals pretty late in my pregnancy. And the hospital that I switched to was, they're like, sure, we'll give you the time you need. I met with the midwives there. I was with the midwives, and they were all just like, yeah. I mean, everyone was also just kind of like, what happened? You made it to 9 centimeters, you know. So that felt promising for me. And when I did switch hospitals, they had said, oh, you can have as many people as you want in the birthing room. So I told all my friends, like, oh, come, and, you know, this is where the hospital is. And I was imagining, like, that if I had a bunch of people there that, like, they couldn't tell me what to do. But then I told my husband that, and he was like, this isn't a party, like, no. And I was like, the room is so big, it's, you know, but, so he was like, I want this to be you and me. And he had been absolutely amazing through my first pregnancy, but we had just gotten to a point where I couldn't vocalize anymore, and I couldn't fight. And as much as he's not a fighter, he's a sort of make everyone happy, and that I knew that wasn't gonna work. So with the second pregnancy, I did have strep B, so they told me you have to come in early, which was not in my plan. I was like, I'm going to go in at the very last minute so they can do, you know, nothing to me, and I'll just have the baby, you know, the minute I walk in the hospital. I was too old to consider home birth, I guess, with my insurance. They said I was too old because I'm old. I was 42 at the time, but so I went in early. The contractions were where they were supposed to be, and they admitted me, and we were just kind of hanging out in the hospital, and I was dealing with the contractions. And then they sort of just said, okay, this has been a little bit long to labor on the fact that you have a scar, and I was kind of like, okay, here we go. This is, you know, the previous C-section is going to come back to influence this pregnancy. So Marcella had very kindly offered, you know, like, whatever you need, I will do. And so it was midnight, and I told my husband, we need someone else. He was just exhausted. He was, you know, he'd been with me throughout the whole day. We had gotten there at like 10 a.m., so we had been there a while. So they were either going to break my water, or I don't even know what the other option was. But I didn't want them to break my water. That had happened the first time, and I really, got things going. And so Marcella came, and she just was like, okay, show me what you've been doing with contractions. And my husband had been counting up to a certain number, and then I think it was 30, and then it's because they wouldn't get worse than that, then he would count down for me, so that was helpful. And he was pressing on my back, and I had this birthing ball that I would use to sort of relieve the pressure on my lower back. But we weren't really, I had taken a shower. I had been like, this pain is useful. This is what I want. But it was just the idea of getting the baby from where it was, which was, he was pretty low already, to just out of my body. I did not know how to do that on my own. And my husband, just exhausted. So Marcella was so helpful in she watched what we were doing. She asked us some questions, and then we took a walk. Right, so we go out in the hall, and they told us that there was no one in no one giving birth at that time, no one in any of the rooms. And that was so helpful for me, because my first time I had been embarrassed that I was making so much noise. It was like me and another mom down the hall were like going for it with the, vocalization, and I was like, I shouldn't be being loud. Like, there was just this internal, idea that I knew to not be rational, but as soon as I found out that it's just me and the people that work here, I was like, okay, who cares? I mean, that was helpful. And then Marcella said, okay, we're gonna take a break and turn towards your husband and put your head on his chest and lean forward. And then she was just putting pressure on my hips to open them. So I was like, oh, this is sort of like the magic. This is going to make this work. And the first few times my husband had this sweater on that I asked him to take it off, and he didn't. And so then the next one I was like, I said take it off. I was like, ugh, I hate that sweater, So once he had the sweater out, he just had a t-shirt on, and it was just so comforting to have him just be able to be there and to hold me up, and to have Marcella doing the work. And it was he was moving. When we went back to walk into the room, I was walking whoa, there is a baby in between my legs, ready to come out. So that was amazing. We went back in the room. I was hoping, because I felt like we had made a lot of progress. Yes, you. That I wouldn't need to have my water broken, but they said I did. There was kind of no arguing, so they broke my water. And then luckily I was able to use nitrous with the help of Marcella sort of telling me yes, this is hard and women do it all the time, and this does suck. This is not fun, because I just remember her across the bed from me, and I was just like, what? How do people do this? And she was like, they do it, and you're going to do it. And I believed her. And she even said later, and I think it was a turning point, that I did not have meconium in my water when they broke the water, which had happened the first time. And I was afraid of the mess that I had made when they broke the water the first time. Okay, come on, they'll clean it up. You're okay. You want to go down? So they broke my water, and then, so I did okay from... It was the 9 to 10 where I just had the face mask of laughing gas on my face, which helped me to just take the edge off the pain slightly, where I could think of something else. And what I thought of was when I was little, and I used to run around with my brother and his friends, and that I was a tough little girl, and I can be a tough woman right now and get through this. And the fact that I could actually have another thought besides the pain was also amazing to me. I was like, I can think about something. But then they came and told me that I had to stop using the nitrous, which I was literally also pretending I was scuba diving, so I had this thing on. But it was helpful, because on the out breaths, I was just going, and had I not had this mask on, I would have been spitting all over everyone, which I wouldn't have felt good about, but I felt great about just, going for it with this face mask of nitrous. So yes, they took that away. They said I couldn't use it for the rest of labor, which I also kind of thought was funny. Like, of course I'm going to overdo it. But, and then they were like, the midwife said, now comes the hard part. Now you have to push. And I was just like, yes, like I get to push. Like, because that had been the point that I didn't make it to last time. So I was so psyched to push. I was on my back. There was one nurse that said, oh, should we get the squatting bar? And she can squat. And everyone kind of looked at each other. And in my mind, I was like, yes, get it, do it. But nothing came out of my mouth. So that didn't ever happen. I was on my back, pushing and pushing and pushing. Pushing didn't hurt. I just was so glad to be there. But it was hard. It was, like physical work. And I was, they were cueing me like, okay, push now. And Marcella was, what really helped to get through that part was her telling me to breathe like 3 different times throughout the pushing, not just pushing. You don't push with your face was another thing that was helpful. Like use your body. And then it was like right at the end, and my nurse was like, had a towel, and I was pulling on the towel, and she was pulling on the other end, and like, I played sports. I've lifted weights. Like I was like, this is as hard as I can pull. And she was a strong woman, and we were both just like pulling, pushing. And then they were like, nothing's perfect. So they said, it was right at the end. And the crazy thing was, since there was no one there, it was like 8 nurses, I think, and Marcella and my husband, who I tried to literally break his hand off at one point. He was like, I don't need the hand, it's okay. And I was just like, but yeah, right at the end, I guess Nicholas's head was just like, would come out and everyone would be like, yeah. Oh, like to the point where I almost was like, come on, like what? This is like a movie. And the woman did say, it's not like in the movies. But to me, it was like in the movies. It was like knocked up. Like when she's pushing, I was like, no, this is just like the movies. Like here I am. So they did have to do an episiotomy right at the end, which I tried to say no. I asked for one more push. It didn't happen. So they did do the episiotomy, and the second that happened, out he came, and it was amazing.